Hail, traveler. Have a rest by the fire and enjoy a tale of the normal onion's experience in the world of Valheim. This story is of the average silent lumberjack from the world of RuneScape, wrongfully accused of being a malicious sentient toaster and sentenced to death.
Hey, you. Finally awake.
Help!
As soon as the Valkyrie carried him to a mysterious stone circle, survival instincts would overtake the sensory verdant assault that ensued the minute our hero woke up. Punching trees, punching sentient beings before they can even say hello, making some tools because this man is actually a civilized psychopath, foraging and hunting for food while getting the lay of the land. We would eventually come across a creek with some cute lizards and plenty of flint to grab from the water's edge. There was also an abandoned hut nearby that would be used to craft more advanced tools like a better axe, a bow, and a spear. No rest for the wicked, however, as I continued to hunt and gather materials well into the night, and make my way towards where I'd ultimately make my main base. Some beehives and dead wildlife later, we eventually set up a small camp with a true Valheim blessing near our first major obstacle, Eikthyr. After cooking up a nice feast and making a pair of pants before the Jagex mods pursue us post-mortem, we approach the altar with the same energy as the cat bringing their owner whatever they caught, and the heavy metal stag is shocked at our offering. Not too much to say about this boss. As long as you have some grasp of Valheim's combat flow, this electrifying deer deity is about as dangerous as those fake chewing gum toys. Eikthyr is pretty bad at playing fetch too, since I had to chase after the stick myself, and it eventually got all tuckered out. Back at the stone circle, we unlock the power of Leg Day after offering his trophy to the gods above. This is probably my second favorite power in the game for obvious reasons. There is a lot of running and sometimes jumping involved in traversing the world, especially in the early game, and this provides a nice boost to movement for 5 minutes. On top of this, Eikthyr also drops hard antlers which are used to make the antler pickaxe so you can finally start mining stone and metals. On day 4, I stumbled across my first burial chamber of their own, which had rancid remains on top of a few surtling cores that I gathered. It got a little spicy near a skeleton spawner further in, but thankfully I crafted a helmet before entering. Safety first, as they say. There was also a ghost. Not sure what type it was, but it was definitely not a poltergeist because it wouldn't do anything with the stick I threw at it. It eventually faded away, probably because throwing things at someone doesn't seem to be the way to greet anyone in this strange land. Some tool upgrades later, and the warm embrace of the campfire would be a farewell as I set off to find a location for my main base. The Black Forest Welcoming Committee threw rocks at me, and considering my current track record of greeting things in a similar manner, this would sell me on making a home on this piece of land jutting out into the water. After taking about 3 days to build my residence hall, it was time to meet my new neighbors, starting with the burial chamber just a stone's throw away. They weren't much for conversation, but I did get plenty more surtling cores so I can start on my smithing operation. A 2-star Grey Dwarf also stopped by to see what I was doing, but I think it either forgot it was a 2-star enemy, or it was just trying to play nice with the new guy in town. The world may never know. Some more exterior renovating would occur while the new charcoal kiln was put to work well into the night. Or at least until the spirit of adventure took over and I went north where I found a troll cave. This is probably the first 1-star troll I've seen in the game, and this was the first troll I've seen this run. It threw a rock at me as per the usual Black Forest greeting, so I threw a stick at it so as not to be rude. While any sane person would probably run from this fearsome foe, which would probably delete me from existence if it so much as poked me, this element of danger only drove my curiosity further because I just wanted to see what it would drop. After about 2 minutes of spear tossing and avoiding an Oscar-worthy slap, the troll fell and dropped 10 hides that I would craft a set of clothes out of after smashing a Grey Dwarf spawner into splinters. I would eventually run into another troll, but this one had technology. As dangerous as this one was, I had an idea to let it mine out a copper deposit for me. Once I was done, I'd dispose of the troll before Hugin could say anything about this practice being unethical and made myself a cool blue hood. A burial chamber or two later, and I'd get 2 kilns and 2 smelters up and running and begin on my least favorite but necessary part of Valheim progression, the Bronze Age. My main goals in this stretch of the game are to get the Bronze Axe, get all of the upgrades for the forge that I can, build a cooking pot, make a cultivator, and to eventually build a carve to get started on water exploration. For a few days, I'd gather all the necessary materials along with some diversions and renovations in between smelting copper and tin, including starting on the building of a wall around my base and getting the materials to build portals. With this newfound power, I set out on day 14 to make a portal from my base to the Sacrificial Circle and a set of portals to the next boss, the Elder. Before I ultimately consolidated my portals though, I placed them close to the camp that I made for Ache there since I had a few materials in the chests there that I could move to my main base. On the way to the Elder, I had a most unlucky Black Forest encounter that started easily enough with a single troll, but it escalated when the Grey Dwarf gang showed up with 2 shamans that began to heal the troll. After kiting them for a good 3 or 4 minutes, I eventually ran across some ruins occupied by skeletons which distracted the chaotic entourage long enough for me to slip away and set up the portal as the sun rose on day 15. As I was moving materials and working a little more on my perimeter, I guess that crowd on the way to the Elder was still mad at me as they attempted to vandalize my home under the cover of a storm passing by. They didn't have a troll with them this time though, and I eventually triumphed over my numerous assailants. I started on my carrot farm, did some terraforming around the base, mined some copper, upgraded my equipment, and picked up the ancient seeds needed to summon the Elder. Day 19, my first harvest of carrots would be ready, and I cooked up a feast of soups and stews before fighting Groot's Nordic uncle. As intimidating as he seems, the pillars and runestone in front of the arena provide more than enough cover from his ranged attack so you can pelt him with fire arrows. The roots are also easy enough to deal with just as long as you're paying attention to when he raises his arm to summon them. Just look for the nearest opening and don't get surrounded. Up close he'll attempt to stomp on you, but that's easy enough to avoid or parry. After about 5 minutes of launching spicy twigs, the Elder sleeps like the log he sprouted from. Since I was headed to the sacrificial stones anyways, I'd take this time to consolidate the portals to a central location. Offering up the Elder's Trophy gives you the power to chop trees faster, which I suppose is nice for a base building or a large-scale group project. But personally, I don't really use it that much. By this point, I gathered enough materials to build the carve, the first reasonable method of sea travel and transporting items banned by the Teleportation Security Administration. More specifically in this case, I'm on the hunt for a swamp biome with sunken crypts that the Elder dropped the master key for. Before setting out on sea travel, it's a good idea to bring the materials needed to build a portal. While you can't bring items like metal ores or ingots through them normally, placing a portal in a safe place nearby makes the death run back less painful if you happen to bite the dust. Day 21 marks the maiden voyage of the HMS Pool Noodle as we search for a sizable swamp biome. After sailing south for some time, I came across possibly one of the smallest swamps I've seen. I tried looking around the area to see if maybe it continued elsewhere, but to no avail. As night fell, when I was heading back to the pool noodle, I apparently drew aggro from a 1-star drogger, which would not bode well if I tried to take off in the boat. One little chase later, and I went back home to do some cooking and other home-based activities before resuming the voyage. On the night of day 23, I spotted Swamp Tree's starboard side and immediately returned home to sleep through the night so I could get to exploring the swamp as soon as possible. The swamps can be pretty intimidating the first time you enter. As long as you take things slowly to account for the rain giving you a permanent stamina debuff, things aren't too bad. Bringing a hoe to make land bridges also helps a ton since you can trivialize the many leeches lurking in the murk that way. After the usual biome welcoming committee, it was time to venture into our first sunken crypt. What we're looking for here are these muddy scrap piles which contain iron. I'd mine these for some time before heading back. Rather than sleep the night away after returning home, I'd fire up the kilns, make some mead barrels so I could start on making health and poison resistance potions, and cooked up some meals before being raided. I offered to share, but there seemed to be a miscommunication somewhere. As soon as that raid was done, I got to work making a wall around my little piece of the forest to hopefully block off water entry, but then the trolls came along to play. This resulted in my first death on the save, which is honestly preventable if I remembered to eat food first. Hugin squawked at me in what I assumed was laughter as I dealt with the Scandinavian smurfs. Eventually I took one of them down and sought to regain my honor by trial of unarmed combat with the remaining one. After about 7 minutes of wailing on his ankles, I ended it the only way I knew how and hit him with a Superman punch. After regaining my honor, it was back to the crypts where I mined out 3 more stacks of iron to fill out the carved storage bin, sailed back home and got iron production going. I made some shiny new iron gear and went to test it out in the swamps by killing my first abomination of the run. Somewhere around this point, I also had a thought while recording that it would be kind of funny if I found the bone mass altar in these swamps. But as I was making my way around to mark crypts, there it was. There were also Surtling spawners nearby that I dug a moat around, which should take care of the little demon spawns if they decide to go after me. As the night rolled in, a wraith followed me back to the portal, which I took care of since they dropped chains needed for certain crafts, including an upgrade to the forge and a cooking station needed to cook large cuts of meat. The swamp squad would invade my fort once again, but I was much tankier this time around. The next day was spent venturing through the swamp to mark more crypts, blocking a few abominations along the way, and nabbing some turnip seeds before working on my base a little more. While doing this, I got all the materials together to construct a longboat which I took through the portal with me. A couple of sunken crypts later, and I sailed back home with 8 full stacks of iron on my new vessel that I will name the Lady Lumbridge. As I was shuffling my boats around back home, the trolls would show up again, but this time I was both armored and fed, so they stood no chance. After parking the Lady Lumbridge, it was back to metal production, meaning more time spent working on the base. After messing around a bit, upgrading my gear, cooking up some food, and brewing some potions, it was on day 43 that I went after bone mass. Oogie Boogie's slimy cousin seems a little intimidating at first, but if you take the time to enlarge the arena by use of a hoe, and take care of any mobs nearby, this isn't a bad fight at all. His poison attack that covers a large area seems scary, but if you took the time to prepare poison resistance mead, it's one of the largest windows of opportunity to deal damage. Just be mindful that he'll swipe at you in melee range, so either block or parry accordingly. He's also got an attack that should summon slimes and skeletons, but I think there were coding shenanigans happening here with the enemy spawn limits. If your health gets low, just kite him around his altar until you can either chug another heal potion or regenerate some health back. Rinse and repeat, and down goes Slimer. No proton pack required. Beating Bone Mass gives you a metal detector and probably one of the best powers currently in the game. His trophy gives you a 50% damage resistance against all forms of physical damage, effectively turning you into a tank for 5 minutes as long as you're keeping your gear reasonably updated. With a new power and frost potions in tow, it was time to venture to the mountaintops in search of silver veins and new crafting materials. Aside from gravity, the wolves in cold weather are the main threats here. Sure, the golems do a great chunk of damage, but they don't attack nearly as fast as the forbidden puppers do, and there have been situations where I died because they stun-locked me in other files. I eventually came across some ruins that contained onion seeds and an exposed silver vein that I took a few rocks from so that I could make the wolf cape once I came across any wolf trophies. Almost as if to answer my last sentence in a weird monkey's paw kind of way, the game threw the wolf raid event at me while I was fighting a golem. It all worked out though because golems and wolves don't like each other, and I managed to kind of bottleneck them at the entrance to a frost cave. After that little bit of excitement, I went back home to make the wolf cape, which lets you resist the effects of freezing cold weather. With the ability to venture into the mountains without needing frost potions, I broke down the rest of the silver vein by digging around it, and unearthed another one right in front of it. Once I dug that one out, I had built a cart with the sole purpose of loading it up with silver and taking it down the mountain slope. It wasn't exactly a smooth ride, but we made it back to the Lady Lumbridge eventually and sailed back home. As I pulled in, it seemed like Bone Mass was salty about the whole me murdering him kind of thing, and all the ads that were supposed to show up during his fight made their way to my base. There was more smelting to be done, which meant more time to renovate my fort. The most significant addition was the stone walls behind the wooden ones and turning the ruins that were in front of my house into the start of a tower. Some more mountaineering occurred, and I eventually came across some ruins which pointed out the location of the next boss, Motor. With a new destination marked out for me, I made some silver armor, crafted the Draugr Fang along with other silver weapons, and sailed to Motor's location to drop a portal. I sailed back after picking up some more silver, got it all smelted down, and realized I almost forgot to hit record before starting a fight with Motor on day 66. While Motor does have some attacks that can chunk your health, there are long enough pauses between attacks that anyone more sensible than me can retreat and regenerate health back. Also, as the fight is right now, she tends to get herself stuck in weird places depending on the surrounding terrain, which kinda kills the overall mood of slaying a dragon.
It just works.
Motor goes down soon enough, and with her demise comes the usual routine of offering her trophy to the altar and making a shiny new crafting station. Her power gives you tailwind while sailing for as long as the power is active. This is great in a group setting as long as you coordinate power chaining, but it is a bit limiting in solo play. Motor also gives you her tiers, which are used to make the artisan table. This lets you build blast furnaces, windmills, ovens, and spinning wheels, which are all used to process materials from the plains, which is where we're heading next. After some base renovations, I originally set out to find a decently sized plains biome, but instead I finally found the trader on day 69. I got a dedicated portal set up near a shop, moved my adventuring portal, and started on my first foray into the plains by attacking a fueling camp. As if it wasn't bad enough dealing with the Green Horde, some locks nearby joined, which would cause me to retreat into the Black Forest biome where I could hopefully dispatch my pursuers in more manageable numbers. This worked for a little bit, but eventually more goblins came to ruin my locks hunt, including a fueling berserker, so I filtered them through the Black Forest and made my way back home. I started replacing my wooden pathways with stone ones and did a little housekeeping before ending that recording session. Before heading back to the plains, it was on day 73 that I decided to make a barn to start raising pigs. As I was doing this though, skeletons would attempt to ruin my day. While they were hardly a threat to me at this point, they will attack deer and pigs if they come across them, so I had to work fast if I wanted to start my bacon farm sooner rather than later. Fortunately, there were at least 2 pigs that survived the onslaught, and I herded them into my barn with the promise of an all-you-can-eat veggie buffet. After feeding the pigs and some more renovating, including finishing up the tower in front of the entrance, it was off to roam around the plains once more. I cleared out that fueling camp that I started to fight against earlier and found 2 of the 5 totems that I needed to summon Yagluth, the boss of the plains biome. A tar slime introduced itself while I was looting the rest of the camp, which meant there was a tar pool nearby, which is helpful if you wanted to get some new roofing on your base. While I was sniping some death skeetos, I spotted a tower in the backdrop, which was in addition to the plains as part of the Helder's Request update, so I made my way over to mark it on my map. Along the way, there was a stone circle. These structures have a chance to spawn in a tablet with the Find My Boss app installed, but this one didn't have that or much else going for it. There was another fueling camp nearby that I would try to file my complaints to, but things got a little heated. After clearing this one out, I figured I'd use the chest here to store the black metal scraps our little green friends dropped since it was close to the shore. In my infinite multi-layered wisdom, I thought it would be a good idea to try hunting Locks at night when I got hit with the wolf event once again. But in a Locks paper scissors kind of world, Locks wins a majority of the time and I ran back home. The next day I'd bring the Lady Lumbridge around to load it up with black metal scrap and start sailing along the coast. The wolves would hunt me once again in the middle of an attack on a fueling camp, which helped me more than anything, so thanks for that game. This camp also spawned in flax and more barley, which are needed for plains tier food and equipment. You can farm both of these, but you have to grow them anywhere that's considered the plains biome according to the game. I continued to sail down the coast and raided villages and camps for black metal and anything else that I found useful. All the while keeping an eye out for Stonehenge's or Yagluth's altar, which has very peculiar stone pillars surrounding it in a claw-like fashion. Even with how large this stretch of plains was, the game didn't spawn in either of those things, so here I go sailing again. While exploring another part of the map further south, the wolves would attack once again near a village, and figuring that it went well enough last time, I ran the puppers into the camp, but I got stuck just long enough in a rough patch that the feeling synchronized an attack on me and I burned to death. No matter though, it was close enough to my adventuring portal. First rescue attempt, I tried the loincloth looter approach, but the goblins were far better versed in this art than I. Second attempt, I donned my iron armor and weapons, which got me a little bit farther, but a few slip-ups on my part caused me to bite the dust. Third attempt, I channeled the chant of the Dark Souls player to get good, and after a few minutes, I'd recover my stuff and it was business as usual. Before sailing off to look for more funny rocks, I thought I would honor the goblins that managed to kill me by offering to build a stone statue of them. Second time's the charm, maybe? Never mind then. After ruining what probably took several years to form in a matter of minutes, it was back to base where upon arrival, the greenest environmentalists I knew protested outside of my fort for destroying their stone pillars. After throwing black metal scraps into the blast furnaces, it was time to set out once more. On day 91, I finally spotted a Find My Boss tablet, and there he was. I hunted a Loxin celebration and began sailing south. Along the way, there was a pretty cool little island that counted as plains. I figured this would be a pretty cool little farming location, so I cleared it out. Day 93, I quite literally got that bread, and placed down a portal near Yoglit's boss altar. The next few days would be spent preparing for the fight against the undead Goblin King, including a quick stop at a swamp on the way back to mine some iron for the padded armor set, and some chains to make the black metal shield with. I also encountered a sea serpent that was both bold and stupid enough to follow me back to the shoreline, where I shot it with some arrows and finished it off with a silver sword. Not a single moment was wasted as I kept production going. The oven filled with lox pies and bread, the kiln spitting out coal, furnaces throwing out only the most perfect of metal bars, the windmill windmilled, the mead barrels meaded, and the spinning wheel was spinning. I had to hunt a few more wraiths down to upgrade my black metal shield and raid a goblin village to get enough flax to upgrade my armor to level 3, and before I knew it, day 100 rolled around. I ate the best food I had at the time, readied my potions, and took the portal to Yagluth. Before taking on the big bad evil guy himself, you should know the drill by now. Clear out the area and all that good stuff. With all the fueling totems in place and silver sword in hand, I pressed the big red button and followed the particle effects. It's possible to hit him as he crawls out of the ground, which can deal a pretty significant chunk of damage, especially with the silver sword's holy damage property. Once he's fully out though, it's pretty much a matter of watching his movements and reacting accordingly. If he raises his right arm, it's going to be an area of effect attack that leaves particle effects that not only burns you, but also your retinas. If his left arm is being raised, he'll summon meteors which he can utilize the pillars around his arena to block out. If he moves his head back with both arms on the ground, either run behind the pillar or commit to running in one direction around him. For either of the arm attacks, you can also use audio cues to react accordingly if you have trouble determining what arm does what. A short laugh is the area of effect explosion. And for the meteors, it's a growl followed by a... yeah, that. Before long, the skeletal goblin lord goes down, and we get his trophy along with torn spirits. His power grants you resistance to fire, frost, and lightning damage, which I personally haven't found a good use for yet, honestly. So I'll probably never use it until maybe the Ashlands update adds something. The torn spirits are used to make wisp fountains. These will attract little orbies to them when it's either raining or nighttime, and are primarily used to make wisp lights and special torches that help you find your way around the Mistlands. There is also another addition that the Mistlands brings to the table, but I'll leave that for part 2 where I'll venture into the Mistlands and complete the current sacrificial circle. If you like what you saw here, throw a like on the video, consider leaving a comment, and maybe throw a subscription my way. As always, much love, thank you for the support, and I'll see you in the next one.